Up until 1986, Phillip Island, just 80 miles off the south-southeast coast of Melbourne, Australia, would be known for its famous Grand Prix track, supercars, and motorbikes. However, on September 23, 1986, a woman's body was found inside a house covered with a blanket. When investigators removed the blanket, the realization of just how brutal and violent this murder was became apparent. Her name was Beth Bernard, and she was a 23-year-old who worked at Phillip Island's Penguin Parade, and later employed as a farmhand by the Cameron family. Beth's nightgown had been lifted up to her neck, and her body was covered in slashes and stab wounds. Her throat was sliced extremely deep, and the letter A was carved into her chest. You're talking about 4 slashes one way, 10 slashes the other, and 5 across. That's not just someone gently carving an A. Beth's hands had defensive cuts, and paper towels near the bathroom sink were soaked in blood. Among the evidence found was a knife tossed aside near Beth's body, and stray cigarette butts, suggesting the killer was taking their time and wasn't worried about cleaning up. This murder was clearly personal. The detectives theorized the A carved on Beth's chest was a reference to the Scarlet Letter, the 1850 novel by Nathaniel Hawthorne. The novel is set in a village in Puritan New England. A young woman births a child out of wedlock and is forced to wear the Scarlet Letter A on her dress as punishment for her adultery. The Camerons had been on the island for over 70 years and had extensive land holdings on the island, as well as the Grand Prix track. It had become widely known among the residents of the island when Beth and her boss, Fergus Cameron, began having an affair. Fergus's wife, Vivian, never really fit in with the island locals. During their first years together on the island, Vivian's reluctance to fit in helped her husband's attention on Beth grow. Vivian, whose father had left her mother for a younger woman, would go on to suggest marriage counseling to Fergus the more suspicious she grew. The rumors of her husband spending time with the new farmhand didn't help Vivian's suspicions. September 22nd, 1986. Vivian makes a phone call to the farmhouse and learns Fergus lied to her, saying he'd be at work until late. Fergus and Beth were together at her parents' house, taking advantage of them being out of town. At around 9 p.m., Fergus returns home late after being with Beth. Vivian confronts Fergus and wants the truth. After verbal confrontation back and forth, Fergus finally admits he's been having an affair with Beth. According to Fergus' police statement, this made Vivian become physically abusive, breaking a wine glass over his head, which made deep cuts on his ear and back. Fergus's version of events can't be blindly believed, seeing as Vivian's account was never recorded. But we'll get to that soon. At this point in time, Fergus was bleeding from his wounds that Vivian had made. They called Fergus's sister to come watch the kids while Vivian and her husband make a trip to the emergency room. When his sister, Marnie, arrived, she would see signs of a struggle, along with a pile of bloodied clothes and towels in the bathroom. Fergus would later go on to tell police that him and Vivian had a violent showdown and that their marriage was completely over. These claims would be questioned when medical staff claimed the couple seemed very much still together at the time. This is where things get weird. At about 3 a.m., Robin Dixon, a friend of Vivian, receives a phone call from Vivian requesting her and her husband come over and watch the children while she takes Fergus to the hospital, a trip that was already completed hours earlier. Robin and her husband arrived at the house to find both Vivian and Fergus gone, and only their 2 boys remaining. Robin noticed Vivian had left her purse. According to the official timeline, soon after Vivian made the call to Robin, she got into her husband's Toyota and made her way to Beth's house. Fergus' Toyota was seen by Beth's neighbor at around 3:30 a.m. and then witnessed at 5 a.m. at the Phillip Island Bridge, where it stayed until police discovered it 10 hours later. After examination, the Toyota contained 2 packs of cigarettes, a carving knife, and a washcloth covered in blood. The next morning, Fergus, who stayed at his sister Marnie's house after returning from the hospital, was woken by a phone call from Robin asking why Vivian hadn't returned to the house yet. With Vivian's disappearance, she quickly became suspect number 1. Vivian has never been seen alive since that day, and where she had parked the Toyota, many believe she took her own life. The waters below the bridge that Vivian supposedly jumped into was extensively searched and her body was never recovered. Many believe that after the hospital visit and Fergus going to sleep at his sister's house that night, Vivian murdered Beth before jumping off the bridge where the Toyota was found. The detectives believe this timeline of events as well, and the case was closed. However, some of the evidence doesn't quite add up. A woman named Glinda Frost received a phone call around 10 a.m. on September 23rd from who she confidently believes was Vivian Cameron. The call came 5 hours after the Toyota was spotted near the bridge where Vivian supposedly leapt to her death. Miss Frost claims they spoke about sewing patterns and of details only Vivian would know. She also added that she hadn't gotten the days mixed up because she had a friend visit her and confirmed her story. Vivian's purse, which was seen in her home by Robin Dixon, was found inside the Toyota. This means the purse would have been placed there just hours before the vehicle was discovered. During the 1990s, DNA testing was conducted, and the blood on the handle of the knife at the crime scene did belong to Vivian. However, none of Vivian's DNA was on or around Beth's body. Her DNA was found on some of the isolated items such as a towel, the knife, and the cigarette butts throughout the house. The towel recovered in the bathroom was covered in Vivian's blood, not Beth's. Vivian's blood was also uncovered in the Cameron house, meaning it would have to have gotten there sometime after 12:30 a.m. and after the hospital visit. In 2006, a New Zealand crime show, Sensing Murder, sent a private investigator to Phillip Island. He discovered recordings of Beth stating one of her exes was stalking her just before her murder. However, on the recordings, Beth seemed more amused than worried. He would follow Beth around, wait outside her house on multiple occasions, leave her flowers, and left the island shortly after her death. Police would go on to state that they had looked into the man, but cleared him. All we know is the official timeline given by the police doesn't make much sense. And after 30 years, the case still has so many mysteries woven into it. Could the knife found at the crime scene with Vivian's blood have been planted? Did Vivian take her own life at the bridge? Or did she make a perfect escape? Perhaps Beth's ex had something to do with her murder. I'll see you on the other side.